The moment we launched the game, it looked harmless, like one of those short indie horror projects you find at 2 a.m. when you're bored. We were joking around, laughing, waiting for a cheap jump scare. But then the opening screen faded into view, and my smile dropped. A massive lighthouse, barely visible through layers of heavy fog, towered over jagged black rocks. Waves crashed violently below, the sound so sharp in my headphones it felt like the ocean was right there in the room. At first, I thought, okay, it's just setting the mood, but the longer we stared at that lighthouse, the more wrong it felt. The sky was pitch black, no stars, no moon, just clouds swirling like a storm was trapped above it. And the lighthouse itself wasn't glowing. It was dead, dark, abandoned, its glass shattered and rust bleeding down the sides. That image alone made me uneasy. It wasn't the flashy kind of horror, but the kind that crawls under your skin. We spawned at the base of the lighthouse, our characters standing ankle, deep in wet sand. The tide washed in and out, pulling at the rocks, dragging seaweed like long, dead fingers. We started moving forward, making dumb jokes to mask the tension. Oh yeah, great vacation spot, guys, 5 stars on Airbnb. But my chest was already tightening. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching from the broken windows above. The closer we got, the more distorted the sound became. The waves faded, replaced by this low, almost mechanical hum, like the lighthouse itself was breathing. I thought maybe it was the game audio bugging, but then it synced perfectly with the wind. Inhale, exhale. Louder each time. When we finally reached the rusted metal doors, we hesitated. It's just a button press, right? Just a texture opening up, but in that moment, it felt like a choice we shouldn't make. My hand hovered over the controller, heart pounding in my ears. I pressed it. The doors shrieked open, metal grinding on metal, the sound so sharp I literally winced. Inside, it was pitch black except for one faint glow, a lantern hanging crookedly on the wall. Dust particles swirled in the light like tiny ghosts, and the floor was slick with seawater, reflecting faint ripples of movement. We stepped in and then, bang, the doors slammed shut behind us, hard, the screen shook, and the controller vibrated like something massive had forced it shut. At first, we laughed, nervous laughter, you know the kind, okay, scripted event, cool, very spooky. But then it hit me, there was no tutorial message, no find a way out, no objective marker. Just silence. The lantern flickered, the air felt thick, almost damp, like the room itself was holding its breath. I leaned closer to the screen, waiting for something, anything, a scare, a sound, but instead it gave us 15 seconds of absolute nothing. And that silence was worse than anything. I swear I could hear my own heartbeat echoing in my headphones. Then there it was, faint from somewhere above, drifting down the spiral staircase into the darkness. A voice, not clear words, just a draw, not broken whisper. A man's voice, echoing like it, had been trapped inside those walls for years. The sound froze us, because it wasn't just a sound effect. It didn't loop, it didn't glitch, it responded. Almost like it knew we were there. And that was the moment we realized this wasn't going to be just another horror game. We weren't alone inside. After that whisper, none of us spoke for a good 10 seconds. We just stared at the staircase winding up into the dark, half expecting something to rush down at us. The lantern light wavered across the damp walls, and I noticed the paint was peeling in long strips, almost like scars. Every shadow looked alive. Finally, someone muttered, "Well, we're not just gonna stand here, right?" And that was enough to push us forward. The first step creaked so loud it cut through the silence like a scream. I flinched. Every single step we took groaned under our weight, as if the wood wasn't just old. It was warning us to turn back. The lantern swayed in the character's hand, throwing jagged shadows across the staircase. Sometimes they looked like claws stretching out from the walls. Sometimes faces. I kept blinking, trying to tell myself it was just the graphics, just the lighting. But deep down, I felt my body stiffen like prey walking into a trap. We climbed slowly. Every sound exaggerated the drip of water from the ceiling, the scratching of loose nails, the whistle of wind sneaking through broken glass above. It was so immersive. I found myself holding my breath in sync with the game, and that's when it happened. We reached the first landing. The screen tilted slightly as the character looked up, and my stomach dropped. There, at the far end of the hall, partially swallowed by shadow, stood a figure, tall, motionless, facing us. For a second, I thought it was a trick of the light, maybe just a coat rack, but the longer we stared, the clearer it became. It was a man, or at least something shaped like one. He didn't move. He didn't make a sound. He just watched. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely keep the analog stick steady. One of us whispered, do we go closer?" And I actually laughed, this nervous, cracked laugh, because the thought of walking toward that thing made my skin crawl. But of course, curiosity always wins. We stepped forward, just one step, and the lantern flickered. The figure blurred. For a heartbeat, I thought he was coming closer, but when the light steadied, he was gone. Vanished into the dark. At first, I felt relief, like, okay, scripted scare, classic horror move. But then it hit me. There was no sound cue, no music sting, no cheap jump, just silence, and that made it 10 times worse, because the figure may have been gone, but he left something behind. The sound, a breath, long, slow, ragged, like someone dragging air through waterlogged lungs. It echoed up the stairwell surrounding us, making it impossible to tell where it came from. I froze in my chair, pulse racing. That sound didn't stop. It didn't fade out like a sound effect. It kept going, filling the space, closer every time we moved. And that's when I realized we hadn't lost him. He was still there, watching, waiting, following. We pushed further up, and I swear, every step felt heavier than the last. It wasn't just the sound of footsteps anymore. It was like the whole lighthouse was breathing with us. The walls seemed to close in tighter, the air thick, damp, almost choking. My palms were sweating so bad I had to wipe them on my jeans between movements, like somehow that would calm me down. Spoiler, it didn't. The staircase opened into a narrow hallway. Rusted pipes lined the walls, dripping steadily into puddles that stretched across the floor. Our reflection wobbled on the surface as we moved, like the water was trying to reach up and pull us under. The lantern glow made the rust look fresh, wet, red, almost alive. At the end of the hall, a door stood half open. It looked like it hadn't been touched in decades, wood swollen from the salt air, hinges hanging loose. We hesitated because by this point we knew the game didn't waste details. If the door was cracked open, it meant something wanted us inside. I pushed forward. The screen tilted. Our character's hand shoved it open, and the room revealed itself. It was an office, or what was left of one. Broken furniture rotted in corners, seaweed clung to the floorboards, and the smell— I know it's crazy to say this about a game, but I swear I could almost smell it. Mildew, damp paper, that metallic tang of rust. The desk was buried in scraps of paper, logbooks, letters, torn maps of the coastline. We leaned in, scanning each detail like detectives, almost forgetting the fear for a moment. That's when we found it. A folder shoved beneath a shattered lantern. It was marked with a single word, missing. We opened it. Inside was a faded photo, paper warped and water-stained. The caption read, "Daniel Harper, last seen investigating the coast near Blackwater Cliffs. Presumed dead." I felt the air leave my lungs, because the face in the photo, it wasn't exact, but it was close enough. Close enough to look like the figure we had seen standing in the shadows. At first, we laughed it off, trying to convince ourselves it was just a creepy little lore drop. But then the laughter died, because the screen glitched. For a split second, static ripped across the monitor. Thick, jagged lines tearing the image apart. And in the middle of that static, Something flickered, something that froze us cold. It wasn't the game, it wasn't the photo, it was us, our faces, on the screen, not avatars, not digital models. Our actual faces, caught in the faint glow of our own rooms, staring straight back at us. I froze. I wasn't streaming. The webcam light wasn't on. There was no way the game should have accessed that. The static cracked again, louder this time, and when it cleared, the office was dark. The lantern gone, the papers scattered, and faintly, so faintly, I almost convinced myself I imagined it. I heard a whisper in my headset. Not the characters, not the games, my name. That was the moment I realized. This wasn't just a story anymore. This was personal. My hands were shaking so bad after that glitch, I actually put the controller down for a second. We just sat there in silence, staring at the screen, waiting for something else to happen. The game didn't move, didn't play music, didn't give us any kind of prompt. Just the sound of wind pressing against the cracked windows. It was like it wanted us to make the next move. Finally, I forced myself to keep going. Our character stepped out of the office, lantern light flickering weakly again like it had never gone out. But the mood, completely different. The air felt heavier. Every shadow looked sharper. It was as if the game had noticed us. The moment we stepped back into the stairwell, the sound hit. Slow, heavy footsteps, not ours, not the characters. Something else, something below, dragging itself up the same stairs we had just climbed. Thud, pause. Thud, pause, I froze, my chest tightened. I couldn't tell if the sound was in-game or coming from my own room. It felt that close. We spun the camera around, expecting to see empty stairs, but nothing, just darkness swallowing the lower levels. And yet the sound kept coming, getting louder, closer, the rhythm of someone climbing, steady, deliberate, unstoppable. One of us whispered, "What if he's behind us?" And I swear, I almost ripped my headset off because the thought alone made the hair on my neck stand up. But before we could move, the footsteps stopped, dead silent. The lantern flickered, the screen dimmed, and then the whisper came back, louder this time, right into my ear. "Why did you come back?" I shot up in my chair. My pulse was pounding so hard I could hear it. The voice didn't echo like before. It sounded close, as if someone was leaning right next to the mic, breathing into it. And then the screen brightened just slightly, enough for us to see him. At the bottom of the stairs, cloaked in shadow, the figure stood again. Pale face, hollow eyes, still as stone, but unmistakably there. His head tilted slowly to the side, like he was curious. Like he was studying us. We didn't move. I couldn't move. Every instinct in me screamed to run, but the controller felt like it was cemented to my hands. The figure didn't lunge, didn't scream, didn't glitch toward us. He just stayed there, watching until the lantern dimmed again, darkening him out of view. For a split second, I thought maybe it was over. Maybe he'd vanish again, but then the whole lighthouse shook. The walls groaned. Plaster cracked and fell in chunks. The staircase vibrated under our feet like it was seconds away from collapsing. And the figure, he was no longer at the bottom of the stairs. He was gone. That should have been a relief, right? But then the whisper returned. Only this time, it wasn't distant. It wasn't below us. It was behind us. I whipped the camera around, hands slipping on the controls, and for one horrifying second, his face filled the entire screen. Hollow eyes staring straight into us, and before I could even react, the game ripped control away. The screen glitched, colors bled, and the lantern shattered into blackness. That was the moment everything snapped into chaos, and that's when the real nightmare started. The second the lantern shattered, I thought the screen had gone black. But no, it was worse. Shapes began forming in the darkness, the outlines of the stairwell, barely lit by cracks of moonlight spilling through broken windows. The sound hit first, those footsteps again, but faster now, heavier, pounding the wood in rhythm with my heart. I slammed the joystick, forcing our character to sprint up the spiral staircase. The camera jolted violently, swaying with every turn, lantern shards scattering across the floor as we left them behind. The sound design was insane. Every footstep shook my chest through the headset, like the monster was running right behind me. The tower itself was groaning, wood splitting, beams snapping, dust raining from the ceiling. It felt like the whole lighthouse was collapsing under the weight of something massive climbing inside it. And still, we couldn't see him, just the sound of him chasing, closer and closer. We reached the next landing, turned the corner, bang. There he was. His pale face filled half the screen, eyes hollow, lips pulled into something that wasn't a smile, but wasn't a snarl either. He didn't attack. He didn't move. He just stood there, blocking the stairs ahead. I froze, panicked, fumbling the controls. For a moment, I thought it was a game over screen, but then words appeared on the screen, not in a dialogue box, not in subtitles. Just burned into the wall beside him, glowing faintly in white. "Why did you come back?" The voice whispered the line in sync with the text, rattling in my headphones. I shoved the joystick, trying to run past him, but the screen, warped like static, had swallowed reality. For a split second, it wasn't even the game anymore. It was something else. The walls shifted, the stairs bent. And suddenly, I swear I saw something that wasn't digital at all. Not pixels, not code, a real corridor. Stone walls dripping with water, rusted pipes overhead, the glow of real fluorescent lights buzzing. And then, just as quickly, it snapped back to the lighthouse. The figure was gone, the stairs ahead clear. But I wasn't relieved. No, because now I didn't know what was worse, the monster in the game, or the fact that it was showing us places that shouldn't exist. We kept climbing, sprinting desperately, but the whole structure felt like it was falling apart around us. Windows burst open, letting in gusts of rain and ocean spray. The spiral tilted dangerously, like it was seconds from toppling into the sea. And over all of it, the pounding footsteps behind us, closer, closer. I could feel my chest locking up, every breath shallow, every nerve in my body screaming. My hands were slick with sweat, my heart pounding so hard it hurt. I didn't know if we were running towards safety or straight into something worse. And then it happened. The camera jerked. The screen froze for half a second, and when it came back, his hand was there. Not in the shadows, not in the game, right up against the camera. Long, pale fingers clawing through the static, reaching toward us like he was about to pull us in. I ripped my headset halfway off in panic. For 1 second, I swear I felt cold air brush against my cheek. And then the whole game went black. When the screen went black, I thought it had crashed. My first instinct was to hit pause, open the menu, anything. But no menu came up, no HUD, no sound except the faint crash of waves. At first, it was soothing, just the ocean rolling against the rocks, rhythmic, steady. But then I noticed it wasn't looping, it wasn't a sound effect. Each wave sounded different, natural, alive. It felt less like we were hearing an audio file and more like the game had dropped us onto a real coastline. The black screen faded slowly, and instead of the lighthouse, there was nothing, no character, no building. Just the endless sea stretching under a stormy sky. Gray clouds swirled overhead, lightning flickered on the horizon, and the water kept crashing violently against unseen cliffs. We waited for minutes. Nothing happened, no monsters, no jump scares, just the ocean. I think that was almost worse, because I kept expecting something to rise up from the waves, or his face to appear in the clouds. The silence between crashes was unbearable. Then static ripped across the screen. Sharp, jagged, violent. My whole monitor flickered, and through it, for the briefest heartbeat, we saw him again. The same pale face, hollow eyes, close, closer than ever before. His lips moved, and this time the whisper was clear. "Don't come back." I froze, not just because of the voice, but because the subtitles didn't match. On screen, the words burned, "I'll be waiting." My stomach dropped. I didn't even know which to believe, the sound or the text. Both felt wrong. Then the static swallowed the image again. The sea dissolved, the game cut to total black. No exit menu, no credits, just darkness. We sat there, waiting for the usual press start or main menu screen to load. But nothing. The console fan hummed quietly. That was it. Game over. Until one of us, half joking, half terrified, unplugged the headset. And we heard it, faint behind us, that same whisper, not through the speakers, not in the game, in the room. I spun around so fast my chair nearly tipped. Nothing was there, just silence, but my skin was crawling, every hair on my arms standing on end. We tried restarting the game. The file was gone, corrupted. The title screen wouldn't even load. It was as if the lighthouse had erased itself completely, like it didn't want us to ever open it again. And maybe that should have been the end, but even now I swear sometimes, when it's late, when the house is quiet, when I'm sitting too close to the dark, I hear it again. That whisper, that question, why did you come back? So yeah, safe to say, we're never touching that game again at night. Or maybe ever, but if you're brave enough, if you think you can handle the echoes of the lighthouse, you should try it for yourself. Just don't play it alone. Thanks for surviving with us. Hit that like button before the lighthouse decides to take the lights out. And if you're still here after all this, you're braver than we were. We'll see you in the next one, hopefully.